this panel. Hopefully we've had some students come in. I see a few, and hopefully we'll have some more. So first, I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists for being here and taking time out of your day to speak to us. That's awesome. We really appreciate it. And I think that most of you guys are Appalachian alumni. Is anybody not Appalachian alumni? Don't worry, I won't make fun of you. Not too bad. Awesome. So, you know, thanks for giving back. And if you're not, you know, App alum, then welcome. You're in the best place, right? So I'm going to introduce myself because I think that maybe some of the students may not know me. And then I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, and then we'll get started. So my name is Laura Brewer. I am a lecturer in the supply chain, marketing and supply chain department. I spent over 20 years in the industry and decided last year to quit my position at Lowe's Hardware, where I was in international transportation as well as a supply chain data analyst. And I said, I want to go teach. And my husband said, you're crazy. And I said, I know, that's what I'm going to do. So, so here I am, and I absolutely love every second of it. And I work with some great people, including Mr. Phillips over there. And Dr. Dave wanted me to say hey to everybody, and he's apologized that he could not make it today, but he had a conflict. So he messaged me last night, and so you're stuck with me. So I'm going to let all the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll get started. And students, if you have any questions, you know, this is the time. So, and I'll absolutely be monitoring anything that you put in the chat. And so let's get started. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh, no.
So hi.
Cool.
Am I off mute? Good?
No, you're good.
So my name is Dan Emery. 3 years ago, I was a part of the first graduating class in the MS in Applied Data Analytics program at App. While I was here, while I was at App, I did all sorts of just data projects. I was a founding member of the one-year data club. But I guess the biggest moments of my MS was winning a hackathon down in Charlotte. And from there, I was put in contact with LLamasoft. So I am now a supply chain design consultant at LLamasoft, and I've been here for, I guess, 2.5 years now. And I kind of describe the job as just data wrangling with a supply chain context. Almost all my work is done in SQL and Python. And a company will hire LLamasoft, and LLamasoft will provide me to manage a company's data and model their supply chain networks and data.
Awesome. Well, I'm right next to Dan on my screen, so I guess I'll go second. So, but I'm Henry Teague. I work with Transportation Insight, and I'm located in our Hickory, North Carolina office, so not too far from Boone. I am a member of the, it's a mouthful, you guys know this, but the Appalachian State Supply Chain Advisory Board of Directors. Supply Chain Club. I miss club, so it's there. You got to rattle it off. There's a rhythm to it, right? But either way, I've gotten to see some of you folks in person. I've actually gotten to work with Mr. Phillips, with Dr. Phillips, excuse me, with some of our, I think we do it about once a semester, a technology discussion with your course and your students. And so some of the names here I recognize, and it's good to see you guys again, and I hope be able to be additive to the conversation today.
Laura, I can
Awesome.
I can go next. My name is Luke Livengood, and I am the head of product management here at Haynes Geo Components in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We're part of Leggett & Platt Incorporated. Leggett is a publicly traded company, traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol LEG, part of the S&P 500. I am responsible for our global end-to-end supply chain, everything from finding new suppliers and qualifying and designing new products all the way through delivering the final product to the end user and the customer. Leggett is a globally diversified organization. As I said, they're actually the company that originally invented and held the patent for the coil spring that is used in your mattress and box seating for automobiles and the like. So chances are you've probably got a Leggett product in your car or in your house and may not even know it. So we fit into Leggett as their industrial textile arm. So we're involved in everything from landscape fabric to roof underlayment to geotextiles that are used for soil stabilization applications and the like. So I am very much looking forward to speaking with each one of you today, and again, hope that I can bring some value to the conversation.
I'll go ahead and go next,
Awesome.
I guess.
Thank you.
So Chris Jenkins, graduated back in 2015. I worked for Bank of America for about 2.5 years in trading operations. Then I moved over to Ralph Lauren, and now I'm a supply chain development analyst, where I basically help to integrate any new process or technology into our supply chain. It's a lot of change management and a lot of technical, kind of learn the EDIs, electronic data interfaces, things like that between partners, between everyone that Ralph Lauren uses and all our vendors to interact with our supply chain.
All right. Good morning, all. I'm Elizabeth Fowler. I graduated from App in 2016. I majored in business management with minors in supply chain and international business. I've been with Syngenta for 4 years now. Syngenta is an agriculture company. So here in North America, we have a seed side of the business and a crop protection side of the business, which is the stuff that kills the weeds and the bugs and the fungus. I started out in our production and supply development program, which is a great opportunity to rotate through 3 different jobs within your first 2.5 years with the company related to supply chain. So I spent 2 of those rotations in Greensboro, North Carolina, lived in Omaha, Nebraska for a year, working at our plant out there. Then came back, worked in like a data related role in our supply chain planning group. And now I am recruiting for interns in the production and supply development program.
Awesome. Has anybody not went? I think James, did you go? Are you part of you're part of our panel, correct?
No, I'm actually a student now, so I'm just listening in.
Yeah. I think we have 5 panelists, Laura. So I think we've covered all the.
I'm sorry?
We had 5 panelists. I think we got
Okay,
all
awesome.
covered. That's really good. A diverse different types of supply chain careers out there.
Absolutely. Bill, would you like to introduce yourself as well, since you're faculty?
Yeah, I'm a lecturer in the supply chain management program, and I've been with APP since 2012. I've got about a 35-year career in supply chain management in a lot of different middle management roles, focused on materials management and resource management. And I've just introduced a new technology class for the last couple of years at APP, and I've got 3 people representing the technologies that I teach, with Dan Emery, with and with Henry Teague and the Transportation Insight, where he uses Mercury Gate in a lot of his projects that he works with, and Chris Jenkins, who works with Acuitive Solutions, which is another transportation management system that I teach in my technology course. So I'm happy to be involved, and I was able to get people to come in and talk about their careers about supply chain. I think it's an exciting area to work in so many different areas.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. Not that I'm biased or anything, but so we're going to get the panel started. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, students, you're here to ask questions. You have so many resources at your fingertips. So do you have any questions for our panelists? I hear crickets. Crickets, guys.
I guess, how technologically adept would you say you have to be?
Good question.
I think it definitely depends on the role that you're in. So with my position at LLamasoft, you have to be quite tech savvy, as everything that we do is manipulating SQL databases and writing custom code. You don't always have to be able to write code, and you don't always need to be able to write SQL to be in the role that I'm in. But with the people that we work with, the supply chain analysts from other companies, being extremely well-versed in Excel is enough for them. As you get to, I think, the more complex computations, so for example, with LLamasoft Supply Chain Guru, it's considering millions of binary decisions all throughout the thing. What if we ship X amount more flow through this lane, during this time of year? The programming problem becomes too complex to be able to do it in Excel, and that's where we come in. So I would say you need to at least have a base level of Excel, and then anything beyond that is a major advantage when you're getting into the supply chain technology side of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, to add on to that, go ahead, Henry.
Go for it, Chris.
Also, to add on to that, I mean, you think about, supply chain, it's an all-encompassing, part of a business. Every single thing is supply chain: accounting, finance, procurement. Everything is supply chain. So you think about all the partners you have to work with and all the different possible systems that each one of them use. Maybe accounting has its own technology system, finance, logistics has its own systems. You think about how all of those different systems can come together and interact. So that is technology right there, how those systems and how those processes come together. You don't have to know them, but having an understanding of technology and how they can interact with each other is really important.
Yeah, Chris, you hit the nail on the head, and essentially an extension of what I was going to say. So, like, when I was at App, I majored in business management and minored in computer information systems. The coursework curriculum was not established yet for supply chain, so I didn't get to do that. I got to be involved in some of the clubs some, but I figured out really quickly that even though I enjoyed computer information systems, I did not want to write code for a living because I suck at it, to be honest with you. So, but whenever I came to transportation, so when I came to Transportation Insight, I found what I honestly feel like, and I could openly say, is our generation, right? That our generation has got a niche skill of understanding what should the technology do, what is the operation that it's trying to serve, and how do we get to do that? So I spent 3 years in our technology operations group and never wrote the first bit of code. It was more about configuration. It was more about understanding the operations of our shipper clients and the goals they're trying to achieve. So again, it depends on the role, but if you're looking to define that question for yourself, I would kind of step back and look at what are your interests. Do you really like making the program tick, or do you like implementing the program to serve a need? Because there could be two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great point, Henry. Not a lot of questions, so I'll expand on that for a second. I think it really comes down to critical thinking, kind of what you pointed to is, it's all an equation. The business is a big equation, and it's how do you translate it and how do you fit into that equation? How do you make the outcome you want to see from that? And the technology is really the engine you use to make that equation work a lot of times in this 21st century.
I had a question about how each of the panelists, whoever wants to answer, were able to find their niche within supply chains, since it is so broad and there's so many different sectors you're able to go into with it.
Yeah, I can take that one first. Thank you for the question. It's for me, it really came down to finding a company that I felt like I was a cultural fit within that organization. Supply chain touches every aspect of business today. You're dealing with everything from the qualification of new suppliers all the way through the customer service and the billing aspect that goes to the end user. So no matter what organization you become a part of, you're going to be able to really find your niche within that organization, because supply chain is so broad these days. It is, for business today, it's really about finding those individuals who have, the drive and the work ethic and the attention to detail to be able to fit in and dive in within the culture and really drive that supply chain forward, no matter what your interest is. You know, for me personally, it just kind of evolved. You know, I started out with a career as an inventory control specialist, and I was managing inventory within the confines of the business for a particular product line. That allowed me to see how that product line worked. And then I was able to take those skills and utilize those to manage a different product line, to not only work on inventory, but to then also be in charge of vendor negotiations, of setting pricing and things of that nature. So really, you know, for me, just diving in at the ground level and taking on something that was really hands-on, that I was able to sink my teeth into, was crucial in the development of my career. And you know, over the course of the 9 years that I've worked for Haynes, I've been able to see every aspect of the supply chain. And you know, today I'm privileged to be able to lead our supply chain efforts across the globe.
Yeah, Luke, one thing I would add is really more of a broad comment, perhaps, maybe branching into giving advice. But right now, as the entire country or the world looks at rebounding from COVID, you guys have a unique opportunity. If the organization that you join isn't consistently asking why and how, and you know, is there a better way, then they're probably pretty idle. They may be moving backwards. You know, the challenge that all of us are faced with now is, you know, this is how we've always done it, is not an appropriate answer anymore. You know, if this thing comes back, and you know, we crack jokes about going to work from home and hiding in our houses, but you know, the global economy it's going to be exponentially worse than what it was the first time around. So when you're seeking how to find that niche, I agree with what Luke said. Look for a culture that fits what speaks to your heart. Honestly, it's a little schmoozy, but it's the truth. You know, ask those questions of why and how. Why do we do things this way? How do we serve our customers? You know, where do we plug in at? And as you find those areas that interest you, dig even deeper. Create visibility for yourself with your leaders around, hey, I'm really interested in this, and here are some ideas. Again, just perhaps a recommendation, but I would challenge all of you to keep that in mind as you enter the workforce.
Thank you both.
And I'll just tack on a little bit from my personal experience. I was in a spot where I didn't know which direction I wanted to go in supply chain. I interned at a trucking company, but I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be full time. So that's why I joined the rotational program. And so then I got 3 different, very different experiences in a short amount of time. So 6 months to a year in each department really helped me get a flavor of what I wanted to do outside of the program.
Okay.
So
Anybody have any other questions? Oh, sorry, Michaela, what?
I had a question for Dan. So I'm also an accelerated student to the analytics program here, the master's, and I'm a data analytics minor right now. So I've started learning both SQL and Python at the same time, as well as R. And so I was wondering if LLamasoft software does anything with R, because I have found in 2 months of doing that I'm a lot better at R than Python. And we still have to learn it for the program, obviously the 5,000 level computer science class, but I'm struggling with it. So I'm trying to see like if R is even something in the analytics world that gets used at LLamasoft.
Yeah, so I would say at LLamasoft R is used more than Python. I've used R quite a bit, and I prefer Python over, just because it's more in line with like traditional object-oriented programming. But if you know R at LLamasoft, you're ahead of the curve. I think in general, the product that we build most of our models on is called Data Guru, which is a user interface for SQL. It contains an R scripting transform, which I think I'm the only consultant that ever tries to use it, and I always get told try it a different way because you can't turn it over to a customer that doesn't know R. But in general, it's not so much about knowing the exact technologies or the processes. It's about knowing how databases work together. Because as other people have mentioned, when you're managing a supply chain, every department has different data. Sometimes their site codes don't even match up. There's like non-uniform site codes across the company. So you have to be able to, understand how to normalize data, understand how a relational database ties together in order to model everything.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
That's probably good news for you, isn't it, Michaela?
I mean, yes, I've talked to you about it, but like trying to learn 3 different types of code at one time, like my brain is just one big jumble of code right now.
Well, I couldn't even learn one. So, yeah. I'm a CIS major with a minor in supply chain, actually. And yeah, coding is not my thing. I think it's more the thought process that you have behind it. And, trying to lay out every single step, because when you're programming, you have to think about every little thing, because if you miss one thing, it's going to mess it all up, right? So
I always kind of say that it's, I always kind of say that it's more about knowing what the computer can do rather than knowing how to do it. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and I still just Google everything that I don't know how to do. There's no shame in like having to search Stack Overflow to figure out how to do something in a language that you're not as well versed in.
Right.
I haven't had a normal day if I don't Google stuff. So I'm right there with you.
We used to have a saying at Lowe's. It was called GTS, and it was Google that stuff. Anyway. Well, the S stood for something else. But anyway. So, does anybody have any other questions?
Laura, I think it's a comment about understanding how tools work to help improve your performance in the supply chain. There's all kinds of different tools. And whether you know how they actually work or know the programming behind them, well, sometimes that helps, but sometimes the tool does it for you a lot of ways if you understand how to apply the tool. And I think that's what's very in the supply chain today is no matter what way you go in a career, there can be different applications, and it's all about integration too. I think a lot of the keys are how we integrate different systems and different company programs in with maybe your own company if you're working with. And it's a human relations issue too. I think there's a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And whether it's interior or exterior consulting that goes on in the supply chain, where you're working with different companies and different people. So it's a combination of different things. I don't think it's all that you have just to focus on the programming knowledge that's necessary. That would be very helpful. But I really think that it has a lot to do with a lot of different things, but especially the tools that are used today to improve supply chain performance.
Yeah, and I like how Chris Jenkins said was talking about EDI. I don't know if any of y'all have ever dealt with EDI before, but it's sometimes difficult to read.
Regrettably so. I
had
a lot of experience with EDI.
Yeah, and it's very precise. If you don't have exactly what you need to transfer that data, well, y'all know. Well, some of y'all know. It is just, it's like the biggest headache ever. But at the same time, when you do have it right, man, it's like a miracle. It's like, you have the aha moment. So I've worked with EDI, can y'all tell? So I'm gonna. Do any of the students have a question? Any more questions?
I actually do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what you got?
Yes, sir. James.
Yes.
How you doing, Bill? Haven't seen you in a
Hi,
while.
how you doing?
I've been all right.
I think I've got more previous students here than I have current students. That's good.
I was just wanting to ask, when it comes to supply chain, due to the pandemic, do you think there's any specific field within supply chain that is going to vastly expand in the middle of it or towards the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question.
Yes.
I'll jump in there with a couple of thoughts. I don't think I know the ultimate answer, but I got a feeling that the rest of the panelists probably have better ideas than I do. But what I anticipate we're going to see is, ironically, because of this conversation, even more expansion in the technology realm, right? Predictive analytics is very big right now, should be, has been for a while, and it seems like the pressure from the pandemic is putting focus on companies to develop, more legs around predictive analytics, using what we're seeing from not just like weather trends, but maybe pandemic trends, health trends, supply trends, where capacity is going to because a hurricane hit the Gulf kind of stuff, and how's that going to impact your customer. I guess really kind of where my brain goes to with that is our organization historically has been very focused on, okay, Mr. Shipper, are you choosing the right carriers for the right lanes and shipping in the appropriate way? We are working on expanding our viewpoint to not just supply chain, but supply web. Work back upstream to who your vendors are, Mr. Customer. How are you getting your raw material? What are their lead times for production? Are you carrying extra inventory just because you're trying to make up for a lead time issue upstream? And does that pose risk for you if all of a sudden sales plummet and you got cash tied up in inventory? So these, we throw around the words of technology and analytics, and they're all relevant, but they're higher level terms now than what they used to be. Does that make sense? There's so many different ways to attack the animal. So when it comes to supply chain, to try to answer your question directly, I think you're going to see careers that are more demanding from the analyst standpoint of truly understanding why is the data the way that it is, and what do we have the ability to control.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, I think Henry's exactly right. I mean, we're certainly going to see that prevalent throughout supply chains in the future. As I look at our own supply chain internally, we've been focused, and I think a lot of companies have been focused with efficiency. How do you continue to do things better and drive the cost down so that you are able to continue to expand your margins and your profit? What I think we're going to see in the future is a lot of supply chains are now going to be focused on, because of all the supply interruptions we've seen around the globe, they're going to be focused on resiliency and risk management. How do we ensure that we're not single sourced or sole sourced with a particular supplier? How do we expand our supply base to ensure that we're going to have the inventory needed to support our customers? I think that a lot of organizations, especially in the distribution business, have been focused on inventory turns. How do we keep our working capital low? I think we're going to start to see a trend where there's a lot more inventory in the system. There's a lot more product in the pipeline to service these customers. So I think having individuals with the mindset of being able to manage that risk, manage the supply chain, and ensure that supply chains are able to react quickly in the future. I think that's going to be critical as we move forward into the future.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can offer, I promise I'll stop stealing the mic, but I can offer an example specifically to what Luke is talking about. Got a customer that we recently signed that they convert and distribute receipt paper. And one of their biggest customers is Walgreens. You go buy a candy bar in Walgreens, they give you a receipt that's a mile long. So they love them, right? And, they buy a whole lot of stuff. But we were working on a deal with them mid-COVID. That was the majority of what the work was whenever I was working from home. I was working with that account. I looked at their 2019 data. Their 2019 data versus their year-to-date 2020 data annualized, their truckload spend and activity was cut in half, because they transitioned to purchasing more LTL size quantities for raw inbound material. They also reduced their inventory. Now, immediate term, that was because, again, they were trying to free up cash to keep their employees paid. They don't want to lay anybody off. But now we see that sustaining because they're forcing to find ways, how can we operate in a more lean manner, really, to minimize our risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to
So
add on to that little, oh, someone have, no, okay. A little personal experience. I'm not exactly sure where you should go, but I can tell you what I've done to be successful. Is so, you know, when kind of all the COVID hit back in April, my entire team at Ralph Lauren was put on furlough for about 6 months or so, and I was the first one to get brought back from my team. And I think that's kind of because I have my hands on a lot of different things. I try to learn as much as I can about everything else. It's kind of one of my mindsets. And the other mindset I have is make my life better. How can I make my life better at my job? Am I doing a task that's going to make my life easier tomorrow? Am I going to save time next week on a report, something like that? And so you take those two things together, have your hand at everything, make your life better. You're making everything around you better. And the leadership can't but take notice. They will take notice of you, and they will recognize the value you have there. And with Ralph Lauren, I'm not laying off. We're going to be laying off some people this month, I believe. It's going to be quite large, in the news already. And that's because we just need to slim down the people we have. Like Luke was saying, be more efficient. We just have too many people and too many resources we don't need for not enough, you know, I guess sales right now. There we go. Not enough, you know, inventory going out. We have a lot of inventory sitting around. So just try to make yourself spread as much as you can, I guess, and learn as much as you can. And just keep that in mind, you know, how can I make my day easier? And you'll find that it makes the company's life easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
companies value that. Yeah. Yeah, I always tell my students, you know, one of the things I always say is, even though your job title says this, you know, don't be afraid to look everywhere else to learn things. For a couple different reasons, it makes you valuable. It makes you valuable within the company. It also shows drive, which is a big thing. So I just wanted to put that little part in there because it's just so important, because I think a lot of times people just look right here at what their scope of their job is, but that's really just not how things work in supply chain a lot of times. I mean, you can make it like that, but why would you want to? Because the more that you learn, the more valuable you are to the company. And just like, you know, Chris was saying, you're valuable to yourself, because then you learn how to make your job more efficient so that you have more time to do other things and learn more things. So that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, and to add a small disclaimer there to, I guess, what I was saying, and Laura as well, is, you know, she made a great point, you know, learn your job. And that's, especially going young into the workforce, you have to know what your job isn't and know what your job is, because people try to take advantage of you. You will go into the office, you know, people have been there for 5-10 years, and they know exactly what they should be doing and what you should be doing. And they're going to try to put what they should be doing onto you, because you don't know yet. The thing is, once you learn what your job is, you can learn what it isn't. I'm not saying don't learn about other things and don't be involved, but don't be taken advantage of, because it will happen to everybody who's young. It's happened to everyone I know, Bank of America, at Ralph Lauren, no matter where you go, they will understand that you don't know what you shouldn't be doing. They send you an email to do something, you go, okay, I'll take care of that, when you shouldn't be. And that's taking time away from your life to make your life easier, make your impact.
Yeah, I've definitely had that happen too, where, you know, you're new, you want to make this great impression, and yeah, so sometimes you will get taken advantage of because of that. But yeah, definitely a good point. But I always try to use that to my advantage and say, well, I put that on my resume. So, worked out good for me anyway. Does any of the questions, so we have about 20 minutes left. I think we have until 10 o'clock. Does anybody have any other questions for our panelists?
So I kind of have a question for like all the panelists, and it's not necessarily like a supply chain question, more of a, so are y'all of the school of thought that you should get really good at one thing, or get your hands in a little bit of everything and have more of a breadth of knowledge, instead of, you know, I know this one programming language really, really well, but I don't know anything else type thing?
I would give the most general answer in that it depends. So with my role right now, I'm constantly working on different problems with different companies. And so that requires me to have a large breadth of knowledge, but not necessarily the depth that people at those companies have. So typically, I will have to reach out to somebody who has the depth of knowledge that I lack. In my own, I guess, personal opinion on the matter is to master something and become the best that you can be at one particular thing, and then figure out ways to use that particular thing. So if it's a programming language, great. If it's just any other aspect of a supply chain or just a skill in general, I would work on mastering that craft, because so I would say I spend my weekends writing Python code for other things, and I like doing it. I know that's super lame, but I'm always doing some sort of data science project, and there's still tons of things that I don't know about it, and there's a lot of things that I do know, but I find that even if I'm working on a completely different project that doesn't require Python, that doesn't require any sort of programming whatsoever, those skills still come in handy. So by acquiring a depth of knowledge in one thing, it can actually lead to a breadth of knowledge in other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Dan. I think it certainly depends on your role within your organization. I'm in a less technical role and more of a management role at this point. And for me, it's about being a problem solver for your organization. Figure out what the problem is, and then work with those who have the more technical knowledge or the more specific knowledge to solve that particular issue. Organizations are always going to need people who are good managers, who are good problem solvers, good communicators, who have strong attention to detail to help drive the business forward, to help execute strategy. I'm responsible for a variety of things in our organization, and I can tell you that I don't know the specific details of every single job, but I know enough to call BS. And I think that that's really important for folks who want to be in a management role.
I think it really depends on your goals and interests. If you're passionate about learning something new, it makes it a lot easier to learn. And just building off of what Luke and Dan said, you can always glean knowledge from your colleagues. What's important to know is who to go to with different questions. So once you learn who your go-to person is for this or that makes it a lot easier to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to a user conference for Mercury-Gate. I think it was back in 2014, maybe. And they had all kinds of companies there that leverage the Mercury-Gate platform. They had some brokerage firms. They had enterprise logistics firms like Transportation Insight. They had companies that are shippers that have bought their TMS. But we did a whole lot of networking, a whole lot of intermingling, and I got some of the best advice that I've ever gotten at dinner one night, where we intentionally, our team did not go and huddle at the same table for dinner. We went and kind of infiltrated everybody that was there and sat with people that we didn't know. And we were having discussion around Mercury-Gate, and there was a fella, he was actually from Canada, that said, hey, you've got a unique skill that you can understand the technology and you can speak about it in layman's terms. And that told me, he said, I don't have to know how to program it, how to do all the integration stuff. I enjoy knowing how to configure it, but I've tried to build upon that skill set that he noticed in me, and it really kind of led me into my solutions engineering role now, where I go engage with customers and I ask them about, hey, what's your order to cash cycle, and how does it work, and then make recommendations to where to plug into. So I'm being verbose, but just like everybody else here is saying, is find your sweet spot, right? There's a lot of wealth and value in knowing how to be dangerous, but also knowing how to steer folks to the right subject matter experts.
Does anybody else have any questions? So I have a question, actually. This is totally has nothing to do with my dissertation. But totally not at all. But I think it would actually be a great question for everybody to hear the answer to. And I'm really curious about this, but for each of you, during the COVID situation, other than having to meet, remotely and get used to Zoom meetings and all this stuff, what was your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome that challenge, or have you ever overcame that challenge so far?
So strangely enough, I think my largest challenge from working remote has been a work-life balance. One of the things that I never noticed while I was talking about ping pong earlier, but one of the things I never noticed about working in the office was that I was very comfortable taking 15-minute breaks and going and talking to my friends or doing something like that. When I started working from home, I felt like I'm being paid to work. I must work right when I wake up until I'm done, and then I repeat the cycle the next day, and I felt quite uncomfortable like going for a walk because I was afraid somebody was going to message me while I was on a walk or something. And then when I look at my hobbies, it's like indoor rock climbing is a really big hobby that I do. I do all sorts of beer league sports now. They're not intramurals anymore, but all of that got canceled. So it took me about 4 months to realize how skewed my work-life balance had become since going remote. So it is important to understand from even a very young age to value your own time. And when you're, right now, I live in a small Ann Arbor apartment. So when I check out of work, I go and sit right on that couch. And it's difficult to look over at your desk and see people emailing you and messaging you and all that stuff. So I had to adopt a couple of new just habits of saying, I'm not working right now. I'm not going to do that until tomorrow.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Dan right there, I talk to my dad every time I talk to him. He reminds me, you don't work from home, you live at work. And it's kind of hard to think about it that way, but this is kind of true. And the work-life balance is definitely something that even without COVID, you have to kind of learn to do. I tell my teammates, my managers, if I have a day off and you call me, you're not going to get an answer for 3 hours because either it wasn't an emergency or you figured it out on your own. So you didn't really need me in the first place. But and I kind of and then talk to my brother though. He's been working, in the computer science, data architect, I guess, for banks. He works at Bank of America now, and he's moved his way up very quickly. I'm amazed by him. But he tells me once you get to a certain point, maybe Luke, you can talk to this. Once you get to a certain point, make a certain amount of money, you can't do that. You can't say I'm not available. You have to always be available. So I kind of appreciate that now, being just a lower level analyst, being able to just turn off. But maybe Luke, you can speak to if that's not as possible, you get a little higher up.
Well, I will say that Dan and Christopher are exactly right. Driving that work and home life balance is very, very important. Our organization has actually been working remotely since March, and with a few people that have critical roles that can't be done off site still in our office here in Winston-Salem. But it is very, very difficult to turn that off when your computer is at home and all you got to do is walk down the hall and as Dan said, you see people messaging you and emailing you, but I would encourage everybody to just strike the right balance between work and life, because if you don't do both, if you don't do both, you're not going to be successful, because you've got to recharge your batteries. So be particular and be selfish with your vacation time, with your off hours. At the same time, you got to do what you got to do to get the job done. And if you're getting the job done, chances are your manager, your boss is going to recognize that. And when you need to take some downtime, when you need to take some vacation time, they're going to let you have your piece on that. And at least that's been my experience in my career, and something that I've tried to live by as a manager as well. To take that a step further, for me, probably outside of the work and home life balance, probably the most difficult thing has been maintaining relationships with people that I've worked with. Now, I'm fortunate that I've been in my role for a little while, so I've got some long-standing relationships with folks that, particularly suppliers that I've worked with for a number of years. But you guys all know that communication is not just words. It's very it's very specific to your body language, and not being able to sit in front of somebody and read their emotions and read their feelings. Sometimes that's very difficult, especially over Zoom or Skype, or especially over the telephone. So that's probably been the biggest challenge for my team internally, is being able to develop those relationships with folks that they may not know as well, folks that they don't have the rapport with. And, fortunately, we live in the 21st century, and we've been able to utilize technology to our advantage in those instances. But there's no close second, in my opinion, to sitting down with somebody one-on-one over a cup of coffee or a beer and having a conversation about, what are we going to do to be able to solve this challenge that our organizations are collectively facing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luke, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was going to mention the communication piece as well. Like, as you guys enter the workforce, hit the ground running with being effective communicators. And another piece of advice that somebody gave me that I'll pass on to you: managers, VPs, executives appreciate concise communication. If you think about it, those folks are getting reports on how the business is running. They're getting reports on the teams they're managing. They're getting communication of business challenges they're being pulled into. So, for me, I feel like my email traffic's up 30%, because what used to be a quick 15-minute conversation is now 3 emails, and it takes a couple hours for somebody to make a decision. They're in the same boat, and it's exponential. So your leaders will appreciate an email that clearly states the issue, your idea of how to solve it, supporting bullets, not gigantic paragraphs, and you move on. That will actually stand out more than a large dissertation. And clearly I'm a verbose person. You guys can tell that. Shocker, right? So it's been a challenge for me to adapt that over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly right. That's good advice, Henry.
Yeah. So we only have about 8 more minutes left. I just want to make sure that we definitely address all the student questions if you guys have any. And hey, Dr. Dave has joined us. Hey, Dr. Dave.
Hello. Sorry,
How are you?
Sorry, I was called in. Good seeing everyone. Sorry I could not join you earlier because I've been called by the Dean's office to join their executive committee meeting.
He's in trouble.
Some great thing for supply chain, so I had to make a presentation there. I couldn't join, but yeah, great to see everyone. Chris, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you for a number of years, and Henry, I see you once in a while. But thank you for everything. And Elizabeth, how is your sister doing? Is still competition between you and her, and the competition?
Definitely. She's still at Lowe's in Mooresville.
Excellent. The competition is very, very healthy for me, of course, because if someone makes X dollars, other makes Y dollar, the difference comes to me. I believe in equal opportunity between sisters. So.
Yeah.
Well, I should not say that.
Share all that money.
So,
yeah, they are recording.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yes, I really appreciate that. And you all will get the email because we are planning for Supply Chain Advisory Board meeting on October 30th.
Mm-hmm.
At 2 o'clock in via Zoom. So yes, so I will send email. And Chris, I don't have your email, so if you don't mind, send me that. And anybody, and all the students will be definitely welcome to join. But we really want our, Dan, you are most welcome to come by. Luke, you please come by, attend the meeting. So we all want everyone to have, great meeting and give us directions, give us some idea, and we have great news to share, some great progress. And hopefully Victoria is available. She can join too. I don't have her email address, but so that would be great.
I can forward to her.
Excellent. Yes.
Great. Yeah.
And everybody, I put my email in the chat in case any of the students want to connect with any of our panelists for any reason. If you guys don't mind, there may be questions afterwards that they maybe didn't think to ask. So do any of the students have any more questions for our panelists? We have about 4 minutes left. No?
I would like students to look at our career, our College of Business Career Services page, and look at student success, and it will tell you it gives you the data of average salary our student received last year. Supply chain was the highest average among all the majors.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. If you would like, I can show. If I'm pretty slow in showing the screen, but if you have 2 minutes, I can see if I can show you the screen and see if I can find it. It should be very simple. Let's see, COB.
I know you showed that at the supply chain club meeting.
Right, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will show them. So I found it, and generally doesn't happen that easily, but today I did. Let's see, share screen. I think, can you all see it?
Yes, now it's coming up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see if I can show that. Look at the average salary and our first destination 100%. Supply chain, what's the average salary, the highest?
Yep.
And
yeah, I took a pay cut to come teach. I'm really not sure what I was thinking.
Right. And if you click on supply chain management, then it will tell you which companies our students are getting jobs. So it's all available on COB webpage. So I wanted to let our students know that please continue searching for internship, and internship will help significantly in the job, and also gives you great opportunity to make connections, learn pragmatic issues of supply chain, but also you can knock out 6 hours of electives. And I really would encourage all the students to take internship if they can. That would be outstanding. I wanted to brag about our students.
Yeah, because we have the best. Anyway, so thank you, Dr. Dave. We greatly appreciate that. And I think, the numbers don't lie. Didn't we say that earlier?
Exactly.
Right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I know a lot of you guys are working from home. And I just want to say thank you to all of the students that came today and helped contribute to the panelists. I hope you got some great knowledge out of it. I mean, even me being in the industry, I love these panelists because these panel sessions because, even I learn things and I take it back to my classroom. And, we just greatly appreciate the students coming and taking advantage of this. And thank you so much to our panelists for being here today and taking time out of your day and hanging out with us and answering these great questions. This, to me, I think that students hearing from people who are in the industry right now, which I'm not so far removed, but hearing what's going on right now, especially during this craziness, chaos that we have at the moment, is definitely just valuable to them. I mean, they need to hear these things. And so again, thank you so much for being here for us and taking the time to talk to our students.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and participating in this conference. I think it really helps our students to understand about the dynamics of supply chain management and how it's such a rewarding career when you get involved in so many aspects of supply chain management.
Yes, and we truly appreciate all of your dedication and support and taking time from a busy schedule to address our students. I've been in contact with other company executives and Lauren McMahan from Haynes brand and all that others. Like I said, I'm still not 100%. I'm still recovering. I had a massive heart attack in end of July, but I'm much better now. But yeah, I was almost dead. But
Glad you're recovering.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Glad you're
too.
doing better.
You know, y'all, we cannot replace the godfather of supply chain at Appalachian State University.
No way.
Most wanted man at App State.
That's what we call it. I know. I've been naming myself the granddaughter.
I started teaching at Appalachian when I was 5 years old. and last week I got an email from a young person who is a junior in high school, and he said, well, my father was your student in 1995 or something, and he said he owned now 4 restaurants, and can you create a video to send him surprise birthday?
That's awesome.
Touched by that, and I created one.
I hope we didn't charge him too much.
So he's the 4th
man.
Yes, and if this student joins our Appalachian, his son, he's junior in high school, so that will be 4th generation Appalachian student.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Wow.
But I know that
awesome.
I'm only 35 and holding, so.
Okay.
Yes, I'm 29 and holding.
Yes. You're much younger. Yeah.
Anyway.
Billy 36. He's only 1 year difference between Bean and Vice. He's only 36.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Career in supply chain. I started when I was 1 then.
Yeah. Anyway, but thank you guys so much.
Yes, really appreciate that. Yeah.
I'll be on here for another few minutes if any of the students or panelists want to hang around. But I just want to be mindful of your time, and thank you so much for being here.